The senator, I mean the governor has talked about, I think, $700 million roughly, pre-K through third grade. Obviously, that would take a third of that money. What are your thoughts on how that money should be spent? What are your thoughts on what the governor's talking about?
You know, absent knowing what those other items might be that would mark up that $2 billion, I think it sounds like there's room to actually do that. It really does. The question becomes in my mind, I think Chairman Phillips did make a good point, is so the Senate number in the formula may account for all those same things, or are all those things additional to, and does our $2 billion add to the Senate side, and all of a sudden we get that ratcheting effect between House and Senate budgets where we pick, you know, by line item who's higher in every one, and all of a sudden you end up with a budget that's billions more than either one started out at. And that's a concern I have, so we have to sort of find out what each one breaks down their budget, and we're not quite there yet.
I also want to point out, we've been joined by the chairman of the Texas Workforce Commission, Andre Alcantara.
I think he had to leave.
Oh, he had to leave, okay. And Representative Blanco, is he still here?
He just left.
Okay, sorry, it's a little late on the uptake on that one, so. Other questions from the audience or participants this morning? Okay, well, let's talk about accountability for a minute. As I understand it, the present system is that 90% of our 90% of the districts or 90% of the campuses are meeting standards, whatever that means. And only 8.5% of our campuses, quote, need improvement, whatever that means. Is that system driving increased academic performance on the part of our local schools? What could we do, what should we do about having a public school accountability system that will inform the general public, not the educators, what's going on in their kids' schools, and will also drive increased academic performance?
Well, the most interesting number in the last few weeks has been that we're down to less than 80 campuses statewide that are what we call 2-year needs improvement or more.
Right.
And I think a lot of our focus in our committee will be on what we do with those most troubled campuses. And I think.
But isn't that number deceptively low in terms of what's going on out there?
No, remember that's 2 years or more.
Okay.
A lot of what we're seeing is a lot of schools will go needs improvement or academically unacceptable, whatever term you're going to use, and they will do things and intervene in ways that bring those students back into a better performance, and that's actually working and helping quite a bit. What's happening that's troubling is that we have so many, 8 campuses is no small number of folks that have been more than 2 years, and some of those are as long as 5 and 6 and 7 years. I think of one in Central Texas that's 7 years in the same campus. Lots have been tried and hasn't really moved that needle at all. And that's very troubling. And I think our committee will look a lot at what we're going to try to intervene in those most troubled campuses.
What about, what you've got now is you've got a system that says the very best campus in the state of Texas has the same level of performance as the campus at the 11th percentile in terms of performance. Does the top campus deserve to be, well, but I mean, how do we create a system that has some differentiation to it and would drive change?
Well, last time we tried A through F, I died on that sword.
I understand, right. What's I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. Your thoughts on A through F, which is...
Yeah, well, I like Jimmy Don's idea, and I was with you on that. And I thought, that would simply inform the public. Back to what you're talking about, there's accountability, and then there's letting people know about it. And so I think that was something that made it easy for people to understand. I still think that's a mission that continues, so people know what they're getting. I find it hard to believe that, sort of a Jack Welch thinker, that you wouldn't have a third, or something like that, where you'd have some more of a bell-shaped curve and not everybody at one end of the spectrum. Seems kind of hard to rationalize in terms of any kind of real-world experience.
The real world, I mean, and as I understand it, I think they still give letter grades in the public school system to their students, don't they?
Last time I checked.
Yeah, so I mean, what's good for the students?
And for those of you that don't keep up with this, the school community generally hates A through F, and in all fairness to them, several of the states that have done A through F ratings are actually rescinding those ratings. Which
Well, I would just quickly counter Jeb Bush, who was the first in Florida. He did state, and he continues to believe, that that one piece of legislation which he championed did more to drive change in Florida than everything else he did, and he did a lot. So I think that it's worth a shot. And I mean, at least some better differentiation than what we have now. I mean, I think the accountability system, I'll give you one quick example. In order for a student to be counted career or college ready for the purpose of the accountability system, they only need to pass 2 of the 5 exams, any 2, could be biology and history, of the 5 that they're required to graduate. So in theory, you could have a student who is not able to graduate even from high school, yet is considered to be career or college ready for the purpose of accountability. To me, it makes no sense at all. You know, I know you have to give discretion to the commissioner, but I think that the discretion has been abused by the agency, and they could have come up with something that's a little more real.
Well, on the other side, when Jimmy Dunn talks about schools that are low performing, and we hear often, particularly in terms of the charters, you know, let's crack down on these low performing schools. We have to be able to look in the mirror and say, well, how are the other schools doing? And do we have a similar mechanism to make sure that we're not having low performing schools that are consistently low? In Houston, you know, we had North Forest get subsumed into HISD, and that's an experiment that's ongoing.
All right, well, I think that all the panelists and certainly the people in this room and TAB share a common goal of a much better educated workforce, because that's what we're going to need if Texas is going to continue to be successful into the future. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists.